Hello, everyone. How's it going? Long time no see. I saw some of you yesterday. It's been so long since then, right? Hi. Hello, everyone in the chat. Hello. Hi. Hey. Hi. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I had sent a notification like 3 minutes ago about registering. So if you haven't registered yet, let me share it again with you all. Let me also do some background setup right here. I'm getting into my streaming mode and okay, there we go. Please do register for this event. It is really important. It helps you get points. It helps us know who to give points to. And yeah, other than that, I guess it's for your understanding that, oh, we went to this event. Wasn't it cool? Right? Okay, so once again, hello everyone. Welcome to WebSockets streaming. And streaming WebSockets auction platform, I don't know what to call it. So, what I have called it is learning real time communication using WebSockets. And if you are not exactly aware of it, if this is your completely first time in the realm of understanding, okay, what is server, what is API, you have been joined, if you have joined Global Hack Week for the very first time, then we will uh, go over a bunch of things in this stream. I have four sessions scheduled where we will talk all about APIs. My specific focus point would be sockets in general, but we'll also talk about a bit uh, of the other things that exist. We'll talk some theory, we'll talk some practical. And if you are joining me for the very first time, let me tell you, I like to build projects which make much more sense of what I'm teaching. Like, not teaching, I would say what I'm talking about. So in this case, we are going to build a auction platform where we will create uh, WebSockets and we will auction off items. Okay. So at the beginning, I am going to use a fake one, and maybe by the end of fourth session, we'll also have persistence and maybe some more fake data, which could be realistic data. Let's see. Okay, so that's enough about what I am going to cover. Let me introduce myself. I should have started with that, right? Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Utkarsh, but I prefer to go by UT. That's how everyone in MLH knows me. So yeah, if you go like, oh yeah, Utkarsh said something, people will be like, who? And if you say, oh, UT said something, I will be like, oh yeah, UT, yes. Okay, so yeah, that is about myself. I'm a coach at MLH, at Major League Hacking, and alongside I also love to stream, so I'm technically a streamer as well, along with a coach. And apart from this, I also have a full-time job, and the idea of this project came from my full-time job. So I work in, if I haven't told this already, some time ago, I do work in finance a bit. So, in that case, getting data instantaneously is of very much importance, right? It's too prominent to get data instantly. If someone sense over something, like let's say you want to know the price of a particular stock, or if you are into exchanging currencies and you want to trade your if you have dollar amount, you want to get pounds or GBP, then you can send dollars, get pounds, and you want all of this to happen instantaneously, like as less latency as possible, because prices can change very quickly, right? So in that case, what we want to do is have a way of real time communication And to facilitate that real-time communication, we have WebSockets. So WebSockets itself is kind of a way of managing uh, communication. It's a way of communication, and what it does is, normally in HTTP, so we'll go over some theory in a bit, but if I have to give it in one line, so in HTTP what happens is that you have a communication established between your front end, let's say, and your backend, which is a server. So from your front end, if you make a request for something, it will create a, I'm going to use some verbose terms, so please don't think that, okay, this is how it works. But imagine that it creates a pipe between your front end and your back end. This is for explanation only, this is for understanding only. Okay. So it creates a pipe between the front end and the back end. And this is, I'm talking about your normal HTTP. Okay. So the front end has requested some resource. It could be anything. Uh, let's say it's requesting for image. Okay. So then the front end has created a request, and it creates a pipe which goes to the server. The server goes like, okay, I have to send back a response. The server sends the response, and then the server chops that pipe off. So the communication has been completed, and this pipe, this connection has been severed. So that is how normally HTTP would work. And in this case, what would happen is, if you want to request another resource, like if let's say this is an e-commerce website and you have like hundreds of images, uh, on different pages, then you'll create a pipe, get the image on the first page, next, second page, next, third page. So you keep on creating this pipe, and the server keeps, after responding back, server keeps on severing or removing that pipe connection, like kind of blasting it out. Okay. uh, Blast the pipe away. So this is your normal HTTP connection, and this is what would be, there's a term for it which is not exactly correct, but your RESTful APIs uh, are in this HTTP. Now similarly, not similarly, now on the other hand, actually, WebSockets. So in this case, imagine this again scenario, that there's an e-commerce website, it is requesting for multiple images, and your front end will now send a request. So it will create that pipe, and it will go like, oh, I need this image. The server will be like, okay, let me give you that image. And then the pipe will remain there. Okay. It will not get chopped off, it will not get severed. Now the front end can ask for another image. The server will respond back on the same pipe. Okay. No new pipes getting created. Front end asks for a piece of text, server responds. Front end asks for uh, I don't know what else, an audio, a video. As server keeps on responding back, okay, yeah, you need this, you need this. And if server at some point thinks, oh, I also need to send back something else, okay, server can send it. So this, in the same pipe connection, the server remembers to send it to the front end. So that, in its, like, that is the crux of WebSockets. In your normal APIs, in your HTTP APIs, what is happening is that you create this connection, and then as soon as the server has finished responding, you block that connection, you end that connection. But in case of WebSockets, you create a connection and you keep that connection. Okay. And as I said, in this one, since there is single pipe, you can transmit in both directions. Okay. So from the front end to the back end, from the back end to the front end. So that is a very high level explanation of what is WebSockets. Now, before we move ahead, once again, let me share the registration link, because I keep forgetting this sometimes. So, Okay. While you are registering, also hear me out on the second bit, which is what are we going to do? So, in this session, this is the first session of four sessions that I'm conducting. Two sessions today, two sessions on Wednesday, I think. Uh, yeah, Wednesday. So, I have like four sessions. Each session will be of 2 hours, and you don't have to follow along with me, but I would prefer if you do. And to facilitate that, everything that I code will be pushed to GitHub. This is the link to the GitHub repository that I have created. It does not have much right now. All it has is a README file, and that's it. So, how can you have the same code that I have? My suggestion would be fork the repository. There is this fork button, so forking will allow you to create a copy on your GitHub account of my code. Hope that makes sense. I'm assuming it would. Fork this repository, it will create a copy of my code on your account. And once you have forked it, then you can go on this green or blue, or depending on what mode you have. I think I have colorblind mode enabled or something. You can then clone this. Okay. So once you have forked it on your user, go to your user account and there click on this code button and clone this. You have to ensure that you have Git set up. If you are unsure about what is Git, what am I even talking about, we had a really good session on Git good with Git yesterday, and you can find all about what is Git right there. Secondly, if you are coming to, like, if you are not sure but you still want to code along with me today, and you cannot like understand the forking concept right now, it is fine, it is completely okay. What you could do is go to code and then download the whole folder as a zip, and then you will have to follow along with me. If you fork and if I make a change, then if you go on your user, you will get a sync fork icon, which would look something like this. So once I make a comment or a push, if I push something to my GitHub, and if you have forked it, then you will get this sync fork button, which in that ways you can kind of update your code with the latest that I am pushing. And there is one question: can we work on code spaces? Yes, please do. Please do. uh, Choose whatever is the most convenient way for you. So you can go to, again, this button, code spaces, create code spaces on main. So this way is what you could do is fork it, and on your user, go and create code spaces. Okay. Any other questions that I might have missed? Okay, there is a question. So usually C++ is used for building stuff like order books because of performance, I guess. Yes, and maybe no, depending on depends on the team, depends on the project, depends on a lot of things. Yes, C++ is comparatively used quite a lot if you are in finance, let's say, and if you are building uh, order books, you're building your order executions, order management system, like a lot of things. Uh, Communication between the exchange and your company. I think a lot of would, yeah, maybe would be on C++, but once you receive that data, After that, you could technically use anything that you want under the sun. You could use Java, which is one of the most popular ones to use. You could technically use Node.js. May not be as performant, but that depends on how much data you're expecting, how much data is being communicated between this and that. Uh, so it depends. Okay, it's all about what works out best for you. Like, I think currently in the market there would be a lot of folks saying, "Oh, rest would be much not rest, Rust would be much better." Right? Depends. Maybe, maybe not. Unless we try it out, and unless it suits your use case, you wouldn't know. In terms of this project, then I think Node.js suits out for me because I don't have a lot of data to show. So yeah, in terms of this project, and if you're building something similar to this, like let's say if you're building a simple chat application between your friends and family, that will also need real-time communication, and you don't have to spin up C++ or Java service for that. You could do it technically in Node.js. Okay, so yes, you're right, but depends on the use case, right? Oh, and someone actually tried to explain it in a really nicer way about choosing the right tools for your specific needs. Yes. Okay, enough of me talking about what to expect. Now let's begin, but we are not going to dive right into code. Okay, that is not really how I would work. Why? Because you need to understand what we are talking about here before you dive into building stuff. Okay, now I am going to start with very simply explaining a few things. Number one, since this is an API week, we will talk about APIs, of course, right? And I'm going to shed some light or some description. I'll give you some description about some popular things that you keep hearing. Example, REST APIs, GraphQL. If you have worked on old code bases or if you have seen very old code bases, SOAP. If you are building something really new, if you have heard about the word protobuf, then gRPC. And finally, we'll talk a bit about WebSockets and OpenAPI. Okay, so these are my some theoretical talking points that I am going to say, was like slash more like discuss, and then we will go into the development part. Now, again, this is assuming that you are completely new to server side development and you have heard the word APIs, but you are not exactly sure what it is. So, I'm going to start from there. So, API or application programming interface. So, what are they? They are nothing but a means of communication between different software systems. Now, why do we need this communication? We need this communication because the wait, sorry, there is a question. Should I make notes? Not really, I would say. The video will be available on YouTube after, so you can make notes after. Or I don't know. I would leave that on you. Maybe, but it's not like that I'm going to ask you to remember this information. So it's okay. And can you see messages yes, I can. Sorry, I'm slow to respond because sometimes I start talking about something and I don't see the chat. So that's why I'm slow. Sorry about that, slash slow to respond. Secondly, at the same time as this global hack week, uh, I am also uh, doing AI Hack Fest. So I'm one of the coaches of AI Hack Fest. So I wait, sorry, I don't understand this. Can I make notes, you mean? Okay, sorry. I was talking that I'm also coaching on AI Hackfest, and so I also keep switching to Discord to see if there is any message. And I am so sorry, so I'm active that I don't understand what you mean. You, if you have questions, you can message on stream. Yes, you want to. Okay, I'll wait for your response. Meanwhile, let me go ahead. So, APIs, as we were talking about, they are means of communication between different software systems. And why do we need this communication? Very simply, well, because the software that you're building may not be based solely on one laptop, right? Like if you're building something on your laptop and you're like, okay, yes, this is ready, we can't take your laptop and put it out for public use that, oh, if you want to communicate with this chat application, come and use this laptop, right? We want a way so that our UIs, or the front end as it is called, can be deployed anywhere. It could be an app, it could be a website, it could be a PWA. uh, so basically that is your front end part, and it could be deployed somewhere in cloud, and it's on a different system, and that needs to communicate with something where it can get data from. Sorry, I have received a reply. Sorry for I can see messages if you post them on YouTube, so it should be fine. Either way works fine. Twitch or YouTube, choose your pick. You can try it out. If you can go on YouTube, post it, and if I see it, then I can highlight it for you. Got it, I think. Yes. Cool. So moving on. Uh, yeah, your front end could be deployed somewhere in cloud on a separate server. Let's say you're using AWS to deploy your front end so that it is available globally for everyone. That is one way. Second, or and your backend could be on your company's servers, which is located in, let's say, Frankfurt. Okay, so one thing deployed somewhere, another thing deployed somewhere else, and how do we communicate between them? That is where the concept of APIs come in. So they serve as a contract between different software components. Okay. It's not like the server can go and change everything about how it communicates and how it sends messages, and the front end can work out. It needs to be a kind of a contract, saying that if I send or request data in this format, you need to send me back the response in this particular format. If I request this particular data, I need this particular response. It cannot be haphazard with respect to what I'm asking and what I'm getting. Okay. So that is about APIs. It's a way of communication, and it is a contract between what this different software components will ask and what will be responded back. Now, it does not need to be, of course, between front end and back end. It could be between two services. So I have one Node.js service that I'm writing. There is another Node.js service that exists, and they need to communicate between themselves. There is no front end involved here. Then still you would use APIs, right? And they will again have a contract. Like if I ask for this, I need answer in this format, this answer. You get the idea. Okay. So that is about APIs. And now you must have heard a lot of things about there is REST API, which is something that even we will explore in this project that we're building. Why? Because I think it makes it easy uh, to understand first, and then we'll go into WebSockets, which might be a bit tricky. Okay. So let's start with first REST APIs. Now, REST APIs in itself is more of an architectural style. It is not a protocol. Okay, the protocol in this case is HTTP, as and the full form of HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So yeah, so REST, I think the full form, let me remember, representational state transfer. Yeah, representational state transfer, REST. It is, as I said, an architectural style. So there is no protocol called as REST protocol, but systems themselves can be RESTful. What does that mean? When someone says that a system is RESTful, it means that it communicates over HTTP, HTTP 1.1 or HTTP 1.0, and it uses some standards, some defined way of communication, which is, let's say, if you want to get a resource, you would use the get method. If you want to create a new resource, you would use the post method. If you want to update a already created resource, so resource in this sense could be, let's say, username. Okay, if I want to get a username of everyone who has signed up for this event, I would use get. If I want to sign up myself and I basically want to create a new resource, I would use the post method. If I want to update my username tomorrow, then I can use the put on patch. There is a big debate between which to use, which not to use. I'm not getting into that, but just so that you know, there's put and patch. And tomorrow, if I want to delete my account, I could use the delete method. And when I say methods, what I mean is that you use these keywords to communicate. And since this is more of a standard, okay, it is a standard, like use this, everyone knows this standard, so every library that exists will use these naming conventions, these naming standards, to help you create APIs, to help you communicate. So tomorrow, if there is a change in the standard, every library will need to change it, right? So that is about REST. And I would say one of the key characteristic of REST or even HTTP itself would be that every request should contain all the information that is needed for server to understand if the uh, request has come from a valid place. So what I mean here is that, let's say I have a front end and you have a front end, I have a front end, you have a front end, and we both can send or request for data from one single server. Now the server will need to identify who is sending me the request. If I am the original owner of that server, I am going to send back, let's say, cookies. I'm going to send not cookies. Don't remind me of cookies right now. Okay, I'm going to send back some information saying that here is my username, here is my password, and here is my token, and I need this data. When the server receives that request, it will go like, okay, the username matches, the password matches, the token matches. I can send back this data. Now, if you somehow know the address to my server and you send a request, you send a username, password, token, and you request for some resource, it will be like the username does not match. No, I'm not going to send back the response. Or maybe you didn't know that you also have to send username, password, token. You only asked for resource. Server will be like, nope, not allowed, because this is not the correct person asking me for information. So what I'm trying to get here is that RESTful services in their, excuse me, I'm getting a call. Sorry, that was my alarm. Do I wake up this late? Hopefully not. Okay, anyways. Uh, so RESTful services in their context are stateless. So once you remember the whole pipe mechanism that I talked about, that you have a front end, you have a back end, there is a pipe. So in that pipe, the front end will always need to send back every piece of information for server to understand that this request is coming from a valid place, from a place where I can send back the response. And in this case, once that connection is severed, the server does not remember. So that is why RESTful services are normally stateless services. The server does not remember who the request came from. Like if you request for the second image, remember our second image conversation. If you request for the second image, the server will not know who are you. It will be like, who are you? So that is why RESTful services are normally called as stateless services. Now, what is the opposite of it? It is stateful, and WebSockets are stateful services. Why? Because there is one single pipe that is created. So the pipe does not get severed or changed. So when you establish a communication, when the front end first time sends a request, it is going to go like, here is my credentials, here's my username, password, and this is my request. The server will be like, okay, is it correct? Yeah, username matches, password matches, token matches. I can send back the response, and then it will remember this front end. It will remember this pipe. It will remember, keep this alive. And then there will be a back and forth communication between them. And the front end does not need to send back the whole username, password, token in every request. Okay, because the server will remember. So that is one of the key differences between RESTful services on HTTP 1.0, 1.1 and WebSockets, which also coincidentally works on HTTP. Okay, so it still establishes the communication on HTTP, but there is something called as switching protocol, which we will see once we start building this project. So yeah, so two things that you understood: RESTful services, which is stateless, RESTful, and WebSockets, which is stateful. There is a persistent connection in WebSockets, which allows continuous data exchange. And since there is continuous data exchange and there is minimal overhead once the communication has been established, it is comparatively lo- faster. Okay, it has low latency, it is more efficient. Now there are a few more things that we can talk about. As I had said, we can talk about GraphQL, uh, which you might have heard some at some point, SOAP, but I think you might get bored. So at this point, I think this is the perfect time to start building something. And once we start writing code, it will make a much more sense about what I have talked about already and what I want to talk about with respect to GraphQL and SOAP. Okay, so without any further ado, let's start. Let us start. So, step one, we are going to build a backend, right? And to build a backend, we need to write some piece of code. And the prerequisite, yes, the prerequisite is Node.js installed. Hopefully, you all have Node.js installed on your system. If not, I have shared the link in the chat, and you can use this to download Node.js. So download Node.js, install it, and I would prefer anything above Node 18. Okay, so minimum Node 20 or Node 22 is what I would suggest. Go for 22 because you see this keyword LTS, that means long term support. So any version updates that any security updates that are uh, used or needed, sorry, can be found here. There is a question. I'm not well versed with Node.js. Will I be able to work with this session? Yes, you can. One of the suggestions was to use code spaces. If you go over to GitHub, code spaces, create code space on main, that should, as far as I know, have everything installed. So Node.js will be installed. Uh, but still on your local machine, download Node.js. And for editor, I'm using Visual Studio Code. Download Visual Studio Code from code.visualstudio.com. I talked all about this in my GitLab, not GitLab, sorry, GitHub Copilot session. Okay. And if you don't have knowledge of Node.js itself, if you have never worked with it, that is completely fine. I tend to go from very basics, which is why some people drop off in the middle. They're like, this is too boring. This is too slow. But I would request you to stay around even if you know everything, to help others who don't. There is another question: how is Postman used here? So Postman itself, it gives you an interface to do API testing. Example: if you want to do a get API, let me think. Let me see if random, no, free fake REST API. Yes, this one. Uh, and okay, now this one was a get request. Let me clear this. Right click, empty cache, hard reload. Okay, so it got the data, this one. So this was a get request and it returned the response. So Postman allows you to test get request, but it also allows you to test post request. So post request is not something that you could do directly from the browser. You need an interface in the middle, which allows you to send a post request for creating a resource, or maybe a put or a patch request for updating a resource, or a delete request for deleting a resource. So it depends what you want to do. So you would use Postman for things like the other stuff that I said right now, and you could use directly the browser for uh, getting data, so get requests. Okay. Mm, other questions: are we going to deploy this like the Chrome extension? Nope, I'm not planning to deploy it in this session. But I can provide you some guidance on how to. So that ways it would be easy for you all to understand. Okay. Other questions? Nope, no other questions. Now let's move on. So in our project, let's start. Let me clear this API week. Okay, so I think the question was basically, do we can we deploy it so that the world can basically use this project? And I am just saying that I'm not planning to, because I don't think I'll have time. Uh, but if there is some time left towards the end, I can talk about how to deploy it or where to deploy it. Okay, cool. Let's quickly get in. Step one, let's create the backend. So I am going to do a folder for backend. So I'm going to do a mkdir backend. You don't have to do it from here. I'm just trying to show off that I know terminal. But you could basically in VS Code, you can click on this folder icon and create a backend. Now in this backend, we want to cd into this backend folder. So cd means change directory. Now you see there's a difference between the path. Previously it was on the root, now it is one level inside here. I am also going to use node 20. And once you have installed node.js, you could kind of do node dash dash version, and it will show you which version you have installed. Minimum 20 is what I'm requesting you all. You can go for 22 if you want. Okay, so I have node.js installed. I've created a folder backend which does not have anything inside it. Now I'm going to do npm init and do a dash y. Also, if the screen is too small at any point, let me know. npm init dash y, it means so npm is again a tool that would get installed automatically when you install node.js. uh, this is my npm version installed, and npm init dash y tells it to initialize this project, create a package json, and accept all the defaults. Okay, so dash y means yes for every question that it will ask. I'm going to hit enter, and it created this package.json with the name backend version 1.0.0. The main file would be called as index.js. I actually would prefer that if it is called uh, source slash server.js. Okay, so source is the folder that we will create inside this backend folder, src, short form for source, src. And inside this I am going to have a server.js file. Okay, blah blah blah. Reload. Okay, so I have changed the main path. The main path of this project would be inside this src folder, and inside that server.js file. There are some scripts. Scripts tell us how to run this project. I am going to create two scripts here. One would be a start script where I'll use Node, which is installed on my system, Node.js, and I will tell it to run the file source slash server.js. Next is for dev. I am going to create a dev command. So these commands, we will see what happens when we run them. And this one needs a library, and we haven't installed the library, so I'm going to wait. Let me show you how to run these commands. So to run this command, you can go npm run and let's say test. Okay, so this is one of the script or a command, and I'm going to hit enter. And what that command has said is to echo this string. Okay, echo means print it out, and exit. So that has been printed and the server has stopped. Okay, keywords, don't care right now. No author, license, isc, I'll prefer mit. Description, I'm going to write live auction platform backend with we'll use REST API and sockets, so web sockets. Okay, uh, any other description? I think this should be fine. Now let us install a few things. I am going to start with REST API first. So the REST API would be using Express. So REST APIs, as I said, it is stateless. There is a certain protocol that we follow to send request, receive response. So I'm going to start with that, so that once you have an understanding of that, then WebSocket would make much more sense. Okay, there are few questions. Actually, I say few. Okay, npm is like pip in Python. Yes. Short answer would be yes. What is the license and main? So license is because this code will be published on GitHub. And hmm, you can read about licensing, why you should license your code or anything that you build, so that if tomorrow something bad happens with someone, they don't come back and sue you. So I do MIT, where I basically say that yes, this code exists, and yeah, you can use it for commercial use, you can distribute it, you can use it for private use, you can modify whatever I have written. But I am not offering any warranty on my code, and I am not liable if something breaks for you. Okay. You can read all about licensing by visiting this link. Okay. Another question: what have I done after npm init y? After npm init y, I have changed this main, which is the entry point to our application. Main is nothing but like an entry point. If this project runs, what is the main file that it should look at? Okay. uh, yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. Now let's move on to the next bit. I have also created the server src folder inside that server.js. So that main refers to what is the entry point to this project. If someone comes and goes like, okay, how do I start understanding this project, they will look at main and they'll like, okay, this is the starting point, let's go from here. Okay. uh Cool. Libraries. So the libraries that we are going to install are going to be a few. So I'm going to do npm install. Notice that this whole thing is currently only 14 lines. Okay. Now let's start writing something. Npm install uh, express course. Uh, I think these two are fine. So express and course, these are my dependencies, and it installs it with this caret symbol. Okay, this means that tomorrow if I share this code and sorry, there's a question in the chat which is how did you save it, because I'm working on notable change. I'll have to look actually. Give me a second. Let me also try it on code spaces. Create code spaces on main. Let's try it out on code spaces for people who are building it out on code space. For others who are feeling that this is going too slow, I am very sorry, but I would prefer that everyone can understand what we are doing. uh, okay, so my code spaces is set, and what I did previously was create a folder called as backend, and then I did a cd into the backend folder. Then I did a npm init dash y, and I hit enter in this backend folder, and it is running, and it has completed. And if I go here, it's done. I think everything should be autosave in general, but you can kind of check it by clicking on this three dots, not three dots, three bars, file, switch on autosave. That should autosave everything that we are doing. Does that help? This was on code spaces, okay? By the way, everyone, this was on code spaces. uh Increase the fonts. I am This was just showing how to do it on code spaces. I am going to shut my code space. Stop the code space and delete it. Perfect. And this should basically end. Okay, coming back. So, course, I installed course, I installed Express. I am going to remove these caret symbols, and I am. So, what does this caret symbol mean? So, caret symbol basically tells that, if tomorrow you use this project and you want to install all the libraries that I have installed, you can do npm install, and up that will check the version that you have in the package JSON. So if, let's say, there is tomorrow there is 2.8.6 as a version, then it will update that automatically internally if you have a caret symbol. Okay, if you have a caret symbol internally, it will update to 2.8.6, which is fine. Okay, and this is hoping that the person or the persons who are maintaining the course library have not made any changes which could break your system. So I prefer to update my dependencies exactly what I'm comfortable with. So if tomorrow there is an update, I will come here, go to packages and update it manually, because that ways if something has changed or if my project breaks because the library has updated, I would know which library caused it. So that is, I think that's my preferred way of updating dependencies. So now that I have done that change, I want to ensure that every other library that I install uh, gets installed without caret. And I can do that by going into the backend folder, creating a .npmrc file. And I'm inside this, I'm going to say save dash exact equals to true. Okay, so this will ensure that it will always install the library without the caret, and we can test it out. Let me delete the dependencies. Let me delete this node modules folder that was created. Let me delete this package lock that was created automatically, and let me try it again. So I'm going to do npm install course and this, and now it's installed without the caret symbol. So now exactly this version will be used, no other extra version inside package lock. Okay, next thing, before I push this code, I don't want to push node modules, so I am going to create a .git ignore file. This is just so that I don't push the node modules folder to GitHub, because it's heavy. Okay, it has too many folders inside it, and we saw that it got created auto magically as soon as I did npm install. So we don't really need to push this. Technically, you can also skip package lock if you want, because I use the exact versions, but you shouldn't. Uh, what else? For local development, we will install a library called as nodemon. So let me hit enter. So nodemon, it allows our server to keep running if we make a file change. So that is installed in the dev dependency. Difference between dependency and dev dependency is that dev dependency is for development purpose only. It is not something that will be used uh, in production. Okay, when you use this project out in the real world, you don't need nodemon. So this is a dev dependency, but you need course and express for your project to run perfectly, for your project to run properly when it is deployed. And okay, dev. So I'm going to tell it nodemon src slash server.js. So this one will, now this dev command will use nodemon to run the server.js file. Okay, so now to show you a difference between what happens with node versus nodemon, let me go to the server.js file and let me do console.log hello GHW. Okay, I'm going to run two commands. Let me first run the start command. And it started the project. I wrote a wrong spelling, okay. And it started the project. It went to this file, it ran the file, and it stopped. Okay. Now, if I have to do this with nodemon, so that is the next command, the dev command, and I hit enter, and the server has not stopped. It is still running. So if I make a change here saying hello MLH GHW, the server auto restarts, and now I get hello MLH GHW printed on my console. So that is the difference between the start command and the dev command. Okay, for development, we want the server to auto restart. Okay, so that is that. What else did we install? So that is nodemon. Express, it is a web framework. It's a node.js framework actually. You can use node.js itself by its own, and it is good. It is raw, and it has a lot of things that you might not need for your project. Whereas if you have, let's say, like very simple needs like this project, uh, you can use Express, which is a wrapper around Node.js, and it allows you to use Node.js minimally. Okay, and it has a lot of APIs, and the syntax is much simpler to use, much simpler to understand. So that is Express, and finally there is Course. Okay, so Course is a Node.js middleware, and what this means is, okay, so course, it's going to be a bit tricky. Please bear with me. So your server, as I said, it is deployed. We took an example a while back, saying that server deployed on uh, my local, my company's systems, my company's PCs, on in Frankfurt, and my front end is deployed on AWS. Now, by default, as a precaution, server will not accept a request from an endpoint which it does not know about. Okay, so what I mean is my front end should also be deployed in Frankfurt on the same system for my server and my client, the front end, to communicate. Otherwise my server will block it, and it will go like not allowed. Okay, you're not allowed to communicate with this uh, Node.js server that is running, because you are on a different port. Okay, you are running on a different machine. So it has to be on that same machine for it to work properly. But what if I really want to deploy it on AWS? How can I make it communicate? So now the uh, wait, let me gather my thoughts. Okay, so now my front end is on AWS, which is a different origin. My server is in Frankfurt, which is a different origin. And I want to allow a cross origin resource sharing. Resource itself means images, video, text, HTML, CSS, whatever, whatever, whatever. Anything is a resource. So I want to allow cross origin, okay, different origins, AWS, Frankfurt, local system. I want to allow cross origin resource sharing, and for that we use the course package. Okay, otherwise, so that we can allow this to happen properly. Now you can allow requests from all the origins, like anyone can kind of anyone can request data from your server by doing app.use course, or you can configure it and tell it that I only want you to receive a request from these domains. So if the request comes from example.com, allow it. If request comes from ghw.mlh.io, don't allow it. Okay, so you can kind of define which requests are allowed, which requests are not allowed to be served. Okay. Another question. I installed everything, but I can't see server.js. You will have to create that file. You'll have to create the server.js file. So create a source folder, and inside that, create a server.js file. Okay, so we have talked a lot about the three packages that I have installed. Now let's move on to the next bit. Uh, so the next bit is going to be writing something. Let me think, what can we start with? Okay, let's start with importing all the libraries and uh, and creating at least one get request so that you can see something. Now, I'm to import the libraries, I'm going to do const express equals require express. Okay, what does this first line do? It checks if I have this library installed express, and it imports that library in this variable. uh, I'm also going to do const course equals require course. Hmm, I think that should be it. How do I know this syntax? If you have that question, then all I'm doing is what these people suggest. Okay, const express equals to require express, and I also did for course. Next step is, let me copy paste this whole thing, or actually let me write it, but just know that I'm kind of exactly replicating what they have here. Okay, so const app equals express. Next, that what's the next thing that they say? They define a port number. So I'm going to say const port. I'm going to use all caps because my port is special. I'm joking. uh, mm, okay, let's go for 3000. Okay, const port equals to 3000. uh, and then there is this app.get, and on a forward slash request comma response, so short form for request, short form for response, and rest.send sends back some data. So I'm going to do that app dot uh, get. So get is a method. Remember, there is a standard for getting the data, and you can use the get method, which internally understands what you're trying to do. I'm going to say on the forward slash when you receive a request and response. So this is what I am going to respond with. And in here, I'm going to say res.send GHMLH GHW API week. API week. Okay. So this is what I'm sending back when someone wait, there is, can we speed it up? Yes, we can, of course. Okay. Uh, Next would be the app.listen. So app.listen, and it listens on a port. Okay. Now our port is defined with a capital P. So I'm going to go for port, and then we can do some console log. Okay. We can respond back or print something in our console. So I'm going to say console log, and I am going to go server up and running on port, and print the port number. Okay, So now I have created a very basic server. Okay, so let's start this. To do this, I'm going to do npm run dev, and it prints server up and running on port 3000, which is nice. If I go over to localhost colon 3000 and hit enter, it says mlh GHW API weak. Okay, so we have made a request and we have received a response 200. Now in our rest.send, we can technically also send a status code. So we can do rest.status and then do a dot send. And if I say that this status code should be 500, then it does send the data, but we are sending the status code 500, and it says internal server error. Previously it was 200. Okay, now it says this. uh, Again, the standard is that when something is successful, you send a 200. So let's do what the standard says. Okay, let's not confuse the browser that even if there is an error, how am I getting the data? So let's not confuse browsers, and let's send it on as a proper status code. Okay, so that's our server up and running. I have not used course yet. To use course, you could do app.use, I think course. That way, that should be the way. Uh, Actually, course has a function. Yes, you'll have to call course. And there's another thing that you could do, app.use express.json. So what are these two lines doing? So okay, let's start from here. I have divided the code into few bits. So the in here we are importing the libraries. In here we are initializing the library into this variable. And now in here we are saying that be ready to receive JSON requests. Okay, parse JSON requests properly. Previously there used to be a library called as body parser, which would be installed to parse any request that come in, any JSON requests that come in. Now Express has it uh, in their code base directly, so we don't really need to define it. So we are using express.json. Course I talked about, port number, which port to run it on. If I change this to, let's say, 5000, okay, and I go here and reload on 3000, it will not work. I have to go to 5000 and reload. And it says you do not have authorization to view this page. Why? It's my page. So if I have changed the port number, probably better idea to, wow, I do not have authorization to view this page. That's a new one for me. And it says forbidden. Okay. Oh, maybe because there is something already on that. And this port number should go up on top. Okay, finally. Uh Wait, so it should work on 5000 as well, right? No, there is something going on my port 5000, uh, which I will figure out later. Okay, so you could technically change these port numbers. I'm going to stick with 3000 because that definitely works. Something wrong with my 3000, 5000. Okay, cool. So now that I have set it up, what does this slash mean? The slash basically means the home route. it shows this error workspaces webs. Uh, Run as a file. I think you're trying to run a file called as run, which does not exist. It should actually be server.js. So in your server.js, sorry, in your package.json, dev should point to src folder. Inside that, the server.js file. If you want, you can post a screenshot of the error that you are getting on I don't know which one would be the best one. I think ask GHW. Probably you could post it there to ask a question. Or in the API week chat. Yeah, you can also uh put it on the API week Discord chat. A screenshot of your package JSON and a screenshot of your error. That ways it would be easier to debug. Okay, cool. Moving on. So we have successfully created one request. Similarly, we can create a lot more requests, right? So let's go to our server.js and let's start creating a lot more requests. But before that, let me also push all this code so that anyone who is facing an error, they can copy paste whatever I have. I'm going to do a git add git commit dash m setup initial backend. Okay, and let me do a git push. So I have pushed all the code. So if you visit the GitHub repository, you should find all the code that I am using. You can technically copy paste package JSON, npm rc, git ignore, src folder, server.js, copy paste all this and it should work out. Okay. Uh, cool. What else? Let me see. Okay, cool. Moving on. So the next bit that I want to do is create a MVP of for my data. So I am going to create a file called as uh, auction items .js file, and inside this I'm going to do export. Uh, Actually, let me do const auction items equals. I'll create an array. An array holds a collection of items, and inside this I'm going to create a lot of objects. So curly brackets, id, one, name would be, let's say, vintage watch, description would be classic timepiece from 1950s, and the starting bid is going to be, let's say, 100, and the current bid, so the initial bid, will also be 100. If starting is 100, of course it needs to start from here. And we'll also create an array for all the bids that we have received. Okay, so this is my first item. Similarly, let me create one more item, and that should be quick. uh Art painting. I have no idea. Art painting. Original artwork by in Scribble. in Scribble.io. Starting bid for this one would be 150. Current bid would be 150, and bids an array. Okay, perfect. And now we could export it. Uh, Let me try and do export const. Let's see if I can import it. I can do const auction items equals require dot slash auction items. Okay. And can I console log this auction items? So let me check. So app dot get. If I go over to slash auction dash items, I want to send back this auction items in the response. So rest dot good practice to have a status code. So rest dot status code is 200, and dot we can also do dot JSON, by the way, to send back a JSON response. And in here I'm going to pass it auction items. Now let's see. If I go over to my local host and I do go to slash auction dash items, there is an error. It got cancelled. Okay, so what is the error? Let's try and debug it quickly. So it says unexpected token export. It cannot understand this thing called as export. So to do that, what we could do is try module dot exports, and module dot exports will have, I think, auction items. But module dot exports is not a function. Wait, I'll have to check this really quickly. Module exports in Node.js. It is definitely. Oh, equals to. What am I doing? Yes, this makes much more sense. Mhm. Okay, perfect. So now if I go over, perfect. There we go. It's like, what? Why? Okay, so module dot exports, I'm telling it to export everything that we have in this file, and that's it. And I've imported it here on top, auction items, and I am sending back that as a JSON, and this is what gets printed on my browser. Okay, so we have successfully created a get request, and this one is a REST request. Okay, it's a RESTful. Why? Because once the request has been completed, it actually stops. Okay, it ends the request, and then a second request is made, then a third request is made, and a fourth request is made. So that is all our RESTful requests. Okay, it started at some point and then it ends. That is the beauty of RESTful APIs. Let me go and see if there are any questions. uh, I think technically, with respect to the time, yes, it would only be about RESTful APIs, and WebSockets would start in the next session. But before we start WebSockets, you need to understand RESTful is what I was thinking. So that's why I started with RESTful first. Okay, so we have created a file where we have added some of our data, and we are able to send that data, and we can view the data in the browser. Perfect. So, okay. The module.exports part, it is nothing. It's a way of how can I get whatever I have written here exported from this file, auctionitems.js file, over to other file. Now, if your type is module, then it understands. Actually, I'm not going to get into type module right now, but the way to export it is this file, which is a mod like this file dot exports. It exports certain variables. The variable that I want it to export is called as auction items. This auction items should be exported, and anyone who imports this variable or this file somewhere here, they will get access to this auction items. Now I can export multiple things from a single file. Example, if I do const my second export equals an empty array, and inside this I say name mlh. Okay, this is my second export. I can go over to my module exports and I want to send this back as well. Okay, so now that I have exported two things from here, in my server JS, I can go and do dot my second export. So now if I go over to my action items, it returns me the second thing. Now two things are exported from this file, and I can choose which one to show. Dot auction items. If I choose to show from from auction items file, which is this, it could be my file. Okay. If I call it my file, I'll have to go in and change it here as my file dot auction items, and I reload. It returns this. My file dot, let's say, my second export, it returns name mlh. I can rename this as well. I can call my second export as temp. Okay, so now I have renamed my second export as temp. So if I reload this, it will be like I have no idea what is my second export because I have renamed it to be called as temp. So now if I change this to dot temp and I reload, it comes back. So all it is basically keying and valuing, key and value. Does that make sense? I have not renamed this, so I'm keeping it as is. I'm not using this, so I'm going to delete this as well. And I'm going to call this auction items because that way it's easy to remember instead of calling it my file. And since I've deleted temp and there is only one thing that is being exported from auction items, I'm going to keep it like this. Okay, perfect. I am glad that you understood it. Okay, moving on. The next step, next thing that I wanted to talk about slash show is now that our server is up and ready and we have made a get request, can we do get an item by a single ID? Okay, yes. So I will make some changes. MLH GHW API week. I'm going to call this route as slash API slash items. And now we don't have any auction items as a route. It will say cannot get this. It will be on slash API slash items. Okay. So I've changed that route. Uh, Good practice basically. Next is app.get. If I want a single item, I can get the ID of that. So it's slash API slash items slash colon ID. And in here, I will go for request comma response. I can say cons item equals the auction items that we have. In that, go and find an item whose ID So item has an ID, right? You see this ID. So I am saying that item.id needs to match with something. So what should it match with? It should match with whatever the user is sending. If the user sends /1, then how can I capture this /1 and show the data of the first item only? So if I go over to my network tab, go over to my request URL, it sends this /1. Actually, there is an error here, like that I have to complete. I'm going to say const request ID equals request dot params dot id, and for the time being let me print that. Okay, so I'm going to do a console dot log the request ID. Okay, server is up and running. I am going to reload this. Okay, and you see this 1 and 1 in the console, that is the request ID. So if I change this to, let's say, 2, it should now print 2. If I change this to 3, it should now print 3. So this is basically request.params.id. This is called as a param. Okay, so this is a query parameter. Okay, now let us complete this. So I'm going to say that from the auction items array, find an item where the ID matches this request ID. Okay, that is very important. So only return the particular item. Uh, Now, if this item is not found, so if not found, okay, so exclamation and item means not found. In that case, we will return res dot status. If something is not found, the status code is 404. You can find all about HTTP status codes on MDN documentation. There we go. So this should have all the status codes of what to use and what they mean. So for response where something is not found, the status code is 404. So return res dot status 404 dot, we can send back a response saying dot JSON, and we can say return a message saying, or more like error, saying item not found. Okay, so I'm sending back this error. But if it is found, in that case, what do we do? So the way this code is being written right now is, if it is not found, it will return this and it will stop. But if it is found, it will never go inside this if condition. So if it is found, then we want to send back res dot status. Res is response, I think I've told this before. Dot, we can do a send or we can do a JSON. You choose. It will basically look the same, frankly. Now if I reload this, auction at items dot find is not a function. What? Why? Oh, it would be auction items dot find, I think. Hmm. Okay, so yes, again a mistake that I had quick made, but now I have resolved it. So first auction items is the file name. Okay, file name. I should name it auction items file. In here we can send auction items file as the whole thing, but if we have to go over every part of that file and find in the auction items array one of the objects, then we have to do auction items file dot auction items dot find. If I go over to slash api slash items without anything, you see that there is a extra curly bracket, and inside that is the auction items. And if I do auction items file dot auction items and I reload, that auction items extra key is gone. Okay, depends again. uh, okay, cool. So I've done this part, and if I try to find 4, it does not, it says item not found. But if I go for 1, it is not sending a request to 1. What did I do? 1 also returns item not found. So what did I mess up? uh, I am going over everything, and I'm trying to find an item.id which matches the request ID. I think I have done it correctly. Uh, Let me also console.log the item that comes back. It comes back as undefined, which is interesting. Why is that? Okay. So this one is not a number. So I have to convert it to a number, because by default, whatever you write here, it goes back as a string. So now if I do this, there we go. Live debugging, right? So this is what happened. It tried to find a item.id, which is a number in our case, and it tried to match it with a string. And it was like, well, actually, it's not found because number and string not matching. But because I'm using triple equals, which means strictly match the type of the variable and the value of the variable. But I change it to parse int. Now this whatever comes from the user in the URL gets converted to an integer, and if it gets converted to an integer, now we can match a number with a integer, which is again a number, and that's how we move ahead. Perfect. What about 2? What about 3? I do not found. Perfect. I think we are getting there. So now you understand RESTful. Any questions so far about RESTful? We have tried to get all items. We have tried to get single item. Okay. Uh, no questions. I don't see anything in the chat. So I'm assuming that everything is perfectly understandable and people are exactly understanding what I'm trying to do. Okay, cool. Next one is bids. In an auction platform, if you can't bid on something, what is the use of the platform, right? So let's write a REST API for bidding. So I'm going to do app.post, and I'm going to say that if a request comes on slash API slash bids, okay, I want to do some checks slash write some business logic. Uh, so if you want to bid on something, you need to give me the details of which item you want to bid on. Sorry. what is the bid amount and what is the bidder name, who is bidding. Okay, that's how we can uniquely identify the people. So if not, actually, first let's take this out. uh, I'm asking for three things in the request. We could do it two ways. We could also we can take these values from the request dot params, where, as I said, whatever you write in the URL is what is in the request. uh, but the other way is to get it in the body. Okay, request dot params dot body. So I'm going to say const item id, comma, bid amount, comma, bidder equals request dot body. And let me console log what we have. We are getting from uh, request dot body. And let me also console log these three things. Okay, now if I try to go to slash API slash bids, it says cannot get. Why? Because, well, it is not a get request, it is a post request. We want to create a new thing, new resource. So I cannot do it from here. So previously someone had said, asked a question about postman. So this is the usage of postman. This is where you would use postman. Now in our case, I don't have postman installed, so I'm going to go for the next best thing that I already know about, hopscotch. So hopscotch is a postman on web browser. Okay, that's the best way to explain it. I am going to tell it to oh, let me share this link in the chat. How much time do I have left? I think we'll be able to finish our REST API in one session. 2 hours REST API done. Wow, that is quite a record, at least for me. And also because the sessions are supposed to be about WebSockets, but once you understand what it looks like in REST, you would appreciate what happens in WebSockets. Okay, so I've shared a hopscotch link in the chat. Let me go and copy this URL, come over to hopscotch, paste it, and I change this request type from get to post, and I click on send. As soon as I click on send, it says cannot destructure property, blah 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 blah. Okay, there is an error. Can't really fix this error. And also on my uh, console, I can see this error. Okay, why? Because this request.body was not passed. Where do we pass that? We can go into the body, and in here we can say we can pass the data in the body. So what all do we need to pass? We need to pass item ID, bid amount, and bidder. It doesn't have to be in this order. Item ID, I am going to say, well, the item ID will be whatever is the item shown, right? We have two items, 1 and 2, ID 1 and 2. So item ID 1. Bid amount is going to be, let's say, 200. So for the first item, what was the first item? I keep saying first item. For my vintage watch, I'm going to bid 200, 200 watt, 200 pounds, because I'm in London. So I'm going to use pounds. So 200 pounds, and bidder is basically who is the person's name. So the bidder in this case is going to be UT. And I can prettify this, and let me try and send this request again. As soon as I send this request, it goes into a loading state. It's not failing, but we never sent back a response from here. So that's why it's waiting. And as you can see, the request.body contains this, and the second line is these destructured items. Same thing. If I only print out the request, I send again, a request itself has a lot of things. It has the path, it has next, which is a function, it has headers, it has keep alive timeout, how for how long do we want to keep this connection open, basically. Is it connecting? So this is for sockets, which we are going to use next. Okay, so sockets, uh, yeah, it has a lot of things basically. In that, all I'm interested in is the body part. And perfect. Okay, so it's getting these three information. If I change the structure of it or the order of it, and I try to console log these three things, so now I have bid amount first, bidder next, and item ID last. Prettify this. Oh, needs a comma here. Prettify this and send. It still kind of understands which value goes to which variable. Cool. Uh, Also, let me remove this. Okay. So now, okay. So I think our post method is working out nearly fine. Now you know what comes in the body part of that sounds weird. What comes in the body of the post request. And now let me also add some checks. So if not item ID or not bid amount. So if any of these things are missing, if something is missing, then I can basically say return res dot status 400 dot json error missing required fields. Okay, so if any of these things are missing, if I don't have, let's say, bid amount, sorry, bidder, then it will send back a error. Okay, 400 bad request. Okay, perfect. So now we have a post request where we can basically check uh, what the user is requesting for, and we can send a response. And this was for a response which was not correct. What about a response which is correct? Okay, sorry, what about a request which is correct? In that case, we have to go and find the item first. So I'm going to do const item equals auction items file, and in that auction items, and in that dot find, okay, dot find item such that item dot id is matching the item id that comes from here. Okay, and remember it's a string normally, so you have to do a parse int and item id. Okay, so that's my parse int item id. If, let's say, you did send me an item id but that item does not exist in my system, if not item, in that case return uh, res dot status 404 dot json with error saying item not found. Okay, so what this would mean is if item id is 4 and I do a send, well, 4 does not exist in my system, so, well, unfortunately can't do anything. But 1 does, and we have still not figured out, like, we are still not sending back a response for the correct one. So the next part is going to be, now what I'm writing is not exactly related to APIs as such. This is more like a business logic. You can take it out from inside this app.post, put it somewhere else. and call it here. I'm doing it here for the time being. Next, I'm going to say const bid amount. Okay, bid amount will also be a number, right? So parse it. What about the bid amount here? It's a number. Yes. So parse int bid amount is less than or equal to item dot current bid. So if the item starts at 100 and you do 50, in that case it's wrong, right? You have to be bidding over the current bid. So that's why we are going to write a business logic saying that rest dot status 400. It's a bad request with a JSON which has an error saying bid amount, bid must be higher than current bid. This makes much more sense, right? Okay, let's say I go here and I change this to 50. Error, bad request. It should be higher than the current bid. What are you doing? Okay, so this is a one step of business logic. And let's say we have we have received everything in the body, we have found the item, okay, and the bid amount is higher than the current bid, so everything has been successful so far. In that case, what I'm going to do is I should update the item. So the item variable that we have here, should I call it found item? Found item. If not found item, and if found item dot current bid, found item. Okay, so now for found item dot so this would be a single thing, right? So found item dot uh, current bid, that we will now update to the bid amount. Okay, what I'm doing here is update the item with new bid. Now we'll create a new bid or updated bid, const updated bid. And in this case, I want to send back, uh, hmm, let's see, I want an ID which will have a should I save this? I should, right? Actually, yes. Let me create a variable here, const bid history equals empty array for the time being. So now bid history, I want to save this in the bid history. So I'm going to say bid history uh, dot length. Since it's an array will have a length. Initially it will be 0. So ID would be length 0 plus 1, that would be 1. Pass it the item ID, pass it the bidder. Item ID should be an integer. Let's see. Parse int item ID bidder, which would be a string, who is bidding. Okay, this would be a problem as such. So item ID would actually be parse int the item ID that we had received above, the bidder, the amount, which would be again parse int bid amount and timestamp. Let's also add the timestamp, when was this bid created. So new date dot to ISO string. Okay, so this is my updated bid object that I am creating. And now what I could do is the found item had a bids as an array, and inside that I'm going to push this new bid or this updated bid. Let's call it new bid. It's not updated bid, it's new bid. Actually, it's technically a new, what's the new bid. And similarly, you remember the bid history array that we created? Inside that as well, I'm going to push this new bid, okay, to keep a history of uh, all the bids that have happened. Yes. Mm, and finally, I can technically do a res dot status. Since it's a new bid that was created, I'm going to do res dot status 201 dot json and send back the new bid. Perfect. I think this should be it. 1 and 50, and I try, it should be higher. If I do 150 and I send, a new bid was created. Item ID for item ID 1, bidder was myself, amount was this and this. Let's say there is a new bidder, MLH, and tries to bid 50, 150. Problem, because it should be higher. What about 160? ID2 and item for item ID 1, there is a new bid created at this particular timestamp by this particular bidder, and I can also console log this bid history. Console.log bid history. Okay, so let me send a request again for 170, let's say, and I send. Oh, the server has restarted, so it lost contact. It lost everything that I had done before, so I'll have to do it all again. It loses it from its memory if the server restarts. Oh, it will never reach here. Oops, my bad. I'll have to do it again. 150, 160, 170. It will still not reach because I've done. Okay, perfect. It does. Nice. 170, and there we go. Focus from on this one. This is the three bids that we have created different times by same user. Let's say I'd go for 180, and there we go. Four bids created. So now there is a bid history as well. So technically we have kind of done a restful part of it. Okay, we have created a get, post. We can get single item, we can get all the items, and we can also place bids on that. That I think would, this is the best time to stop the restful APIs session. Any questions before we end this session? So what we have done, we have learned how restful works out, and now in the next session when we come back, I'm going to add WebSocket here, and I'm going to show you on the WebSocket how can we pass this data. And the difference is, if you have already seen kind of, is once you establish the connection stops once the thing is done. But in WebSocket, we'll keep it alive. And if it is alive, then it means that we can basically, on the same one, keep on making we can make changes, make requests, make, and it will receive response without doing this whole refresh scenario. Okay, Any questions? I don't really understand this question, but the reason why we would work with WebSockets in, let's say, auction platform, uh, this is currently one user uh, doing on one, like one user making request on one thing. If I make a request, you should receive the request that I have made, right? And the way to do it in a REST API would be to refresh the page to make a request again to the server and get the response. But with WebSockets, we can kind of broadcast it to everyone who is on this platform. So everyone will actually get all the like all the bids that are happening in real time. So that is why you would use WebSockets. And okay, there's a yes, I am on it. I also have to push this, so I'm going to do git add, git commit. This was feature, and what did we do? Added RESTful APIs. And let me do a git push. And this should have all the code that I have done so far. Now, I think this is the perfect time to end this session. But before I end this session, may I kindly request you for feedback? So I will post the link in the chat. There we go. So if you visit this link, you can provide feedback for this session. Uh, Hopefully, I don't get disappointed. I have not disappointed anyone. Sorry. So this was real-time communication using sockets part one, where we did API excuse me, RESTful APIs, but that was because we wanted to understand what happens in in RESTful APIs before we go to WebSockets with real-time communication. Yes, in a way, yes, you are correct that I make a bid and the server needs to know who I am. So when I make the second bid, it needs to be kind of quicker. So that way, so in REST, it is stateless. Server does not remember. So every time you have to make a request and it will take some time. And by then, probably the item would be sold to someone else. Okay, so when stateful, you reduce the latency, you ensure full duplex communication. That's a keyword that you can search for, full duplex communication, where both sides can talk on the same pipe that I was talking about initially. Okay, so yeah, coming back to the feedback, yes, please do provide feedback. You can visit MLH, like the link that I had shared. Go and select real-time communication using sockets part one, provide a rating, provide what you liked, what you didn't like, and for any constructive criticism that I uh, receive, I would try and work on it for my next sessions. Okay, so if there are no further questions, thank you so much everyone for joining. Next up, have fun with Yashika in Scribble.io mini event. Okay, and after that, once you are done with some fun, it's time to study again. And I am going to be back right after the Scribble.io mini event uh, to continue on real time communication part 2. Okay, so see you around. Cheers, everyone. Bye bye.